Okay, so hello everyone. How are you? I'm very um sad because it was a really nice day today, but I couldn't go outside because I've got such a bad hay fever. Yeah, it's terrible. I'm still, my eyes are still itchy. Um, so this video is for the workshop, and I hope you're watching this before this week's one. And so that, we can talk about the questions that I prepared for you straight away. And this is quite interesting one. I like this part of LT motivation research. So I might, excite too much and, talk for a long time, but I'll try to edit this video and, make it shorter. I hope you enjoy and learn something from me from this video. So let's start with the possible selves and future self guides. This is one of the most famous self-concepts or theory related to self-concepts, focusing on self rather than like language learners as a group of people. And in this book, Impact of Self-Concept on Language Learning, in the very first chapter, some researchers are saying that uh, a sense of self plays a key role in academic achievement and plays a more significant role in language learning because language belongs to a person's whole social identity. It is part of one's identity and is used to convey this identity to other people. So, a lot of things are going on around you, and you don't, only you don't only learn language in your whole life. You do a lot of other things, right? And language learning is just part of you. So that's why it's different depending on the person. So maybe, researchers were thinking, we should look at, we should obtain deeper insights from each person rather than like a very, well, objective view of like a group of people. So this possible self theory by Marx and Neurius, I don't know, proposed in 1986 has been a major interest as an active and the self-concept has been a major interest as an active and dynamic variable. So like I said, a lot of things are going on around you and your motivation changes over time or maybe every minute. And there are a lot of things which affect or influence your motivation. So it's very dynamic and active. So if you look at each one person, it's very interesting. So it's definitely interesting to see everyone's opinions and ideas in a workshop because you don't have the same motivation as the one I do, right? And others do. So let's go. Possible self theory by Marx and Neurius, 1986. This theory introduces three possible selves. Possible selves is individual's idea of, this is the idea of your future self, future image. Like, and there are three types of future images that are what one might become, what one would like to become, and what one is afraid of becoming. And they are called future self guides because they guide you towards the future in certain ways. And if you look at more in more detail, what one might become is called a default scenario. It's not called default scenario. It's just a default scenario. It's a predictable future. And 2, 3, 4 are very important. So what one would like to become is the best case. It's might not happen, but you are thinking, I want to be like that. So it's ideal self. Okay, you're imagining yourself becoming, for example, a fluent English speaker or working in international environments or something like that. That's your best scenario. And what one is afraid of becoming is called fear itself. So this is something you want to avoid. It's a worst scenario in relation to whatever you're doing. So, for example, well, I'll give examples of myself after introducing those. Number 4, what one ought to become. Ought to means should. So it's called ought self. Something you thinking I have to become like this. This one is this involves like factors from outside, like external pressure, like from parents, from social, from society or community. And so I'll give you my example. When I was a freshman, like first year student in Kanda University, I wanted to be an English teacher. So my ideal self was like respectful English teacher who speaks English very fluently, uses English in with a correct grammar, speaks English in a good pronunciation, something like that. And the worst case, in my case, was I failed in the teacher exam and then ended up having like a normal like businessman job. I didn't want to be like that. I just wanted to be successful in teacher license course, and I wanted to be a teacher, a good English teacher. So something I wanted to avoid was giving up the teacher path and doing like a normal job hunting like others. And old self of my me was actually quite similar to ideal self, because I thought students, actually I as well, me as well, students expect English teachers to speak English very fluently. Don't you think so? If you have English, if you cannot speak English at all, that's you can't trust him, right? So I thought there is a external pressure from students and probably their parents as well, that teachers are supposed to speak English very well. So I studied English very hard. And yeah, of course, like I just told you, you can have multiple future selves like this. So think about, in your case, what are or what your self views like? Do you have any future self image? Are you dreaming to become like something, or are you trying to avoid becoming something? Or do you have any future self view that you have to achieve? And one more question, why, we're talking about motivation. So why do they motivate you? What does having a future self image motivate you to do a certain action? Think about it. Maybe you can pause the video and think about it, make a comment on Google Classroom, and come back, right? So this is one of the possible answers to the question that I gave you. The question why future self images can be the motivation, like motives. And somebody called Higgins proposed self-discrepancy theory in 1987. And it basically says if you have a self-image, like future self-image that you want to become or you have to become, obviously you do something to become like that, right? So reduce, you have your self-image, you have your current self right now at the moment. And you try to reduce this discrepancy, the different distance between those two. So I wanted to become a good, well, proficient English speaker. So I practice my pronunciation, I practice speaking in the South, in university. And that's one of the reasons why I, study abroad in the UK. I did a lot of things to reduce reduce the discrepancy between my current self at the time and my ideal self. So that's why future self-image, like imagination, causes or provokes some sort of like learning action, learning behavior. Okay. And using those self-concepts, possible self-theory, self-discrepancy theory, and imagination. I didn't talk about that here, but this has been studied a lot in psychology. So having those three things in psychology, somebody called Dornier proposed a very influential, a very strong theory, which is specialized in language learning. And it's called LT Motivational Self System, which is introduced in this book. Yeah. And there are three components: IDLT self, OTLT self, and LT learning experience. IDLT self is LT specific facet of one's ideal self, your future self-image, especially relating to your LT use. And it's a powerful motivator to learn the LT because of the reason written here, which sounds familiar from self-discrepancy theory. And Dornier also says integrative and instrumental motives could belong here. So integrated motivation, which was a kind of motivation you have to become a member of a community. So maybe you're imagining your ideal self. Ideal to self is having a conversation in your target language with the target community, right? So you're imagining becoming a member of the community. So in other words, it's integrative motivation. So integrative motive could be, included in here, this category. And instrumental motivation, probably you're imagining becoming, for example, like achieving any, task using your language, something like that, having, better salary, get promoted, or something like that. But one important thing is you actually imagine yourself become like this, like that. And that's a powerful motivational tool, powerful motivator for you. And next one is OTL self. This one concerns attributes like elements or, factors that you believe you have to possess, you ought to possess to meet expectations from others or to avoid possible negative outcomes. So this one sounds quite minus, like negative, but in a way, that this provokes any action, this is counted as a motivation. So like I said, my old self was related to English. I can say that it was also OTL self, and my OTL self was that something like English speakers are supposed to speak English very well. And that came from common expectations from society or students and their parents. And L2 learning experience, this one sounds new, but so this is anything or motives related to the immediate learning environment, your current learning environment and experience, such as teacher, curriculum, and peer group. So any external factors around you, like relating to L2 learning. And Dornier included these components because there is a tendency in the recent L2 motivation study. And this one is one of the pioneer researchers is Emma Ushioda at the University of Warwick, my teacher, or our teacher, me and Nicholas. So they are saying there's a tendency in L2 motivation research to look at language learning in isolation from the student's motivation in other areas of learning. We have been looking at their L2 learning, but they are living people, right? So there are a lot of things affecting their L2 learning. So we should look at broader context of learning and educational activity. So not only English, but also other subjects, for example, So when students are not quite, engaging in a class, and you cannot judge a book by its cover, he or she, the students, might have had a bad experience in math. He's got his term test back and he's got really bad score. So that's why he was very, very depressed. That's why he just didn't feel like, participating in any other class. The reason why he was not engaging in English class was not because he was not interested in English or anything like that. There is other reason, like somewhere else. So we should not narrow our focus into L2 learning or the language class, or we should look at more, because it's a living person. He's done a lot of things outside classroom or before and after the English class. So we should look at a more broader context, and also complex variety of other personal, social, affective motivations. That's something I said. Like affective motivation is might include the example that I gave you, having a bad score in other subjects. If you feel depressed in any other, factors, your motivation towards English may decrease as well. But we never know, so we need to look at one person carefully. That's what this one says. And that's why not only your self-images into different ways, ideal self and L2 self, we need to consider the immediate learning environments and experience as well. So this is what Dornier says. So I have a question for you here. This is nearly the end of the video. Don't worry. So can you just maybe find and share, find any moment in your multigraph. It doesn't have to be in a multigraph, any moment in your life when you are motivated or demotivated by any kinds of future self guide. So I gave you, if it's strongly related to your L2 learning, like language learning, it might be ideal O2 self or O2 L2 self, or L2 learning experience. You can talk based on one of the 3 components in LT Motivational Self System by Dornier. And if you have anything else, like if you're doing some sort of, I don't know, like dance, for example, you can think of your motivation like becoming a good dancer, having a performance in New York or something like that. So just maybe think about your future self. Imagine future self, and maybe you can pick up. If you could pick up one moment from your multi-graph, that would be great, because we can, have a look at your multi-graph, and then we can talk about that at the same time. So this is the main question for you, and we'll talk about this on this Sunday. And if you can't make it on Sunday, please make some comments in a Google Classroom. I'll make sure I'll have a section for that. So this is the end of part 1. Next topic will be vision. So I have talked about imaginations, which is close to vision. And vision is a like alternative word for a future self. And I'll talk about this in the next video, because some people are interested in my MA thesis on the 修士論文ね. And vision is one of the main topics in my dissertation. So I'll talk about this in more detail in the next video. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and what do you say? Give me a thumbs up, and I look forward to having a discussion with you on Sunday. Thank you.